The pro-life movement is at a crossroads. While we achieved a huge national victory from the Dobbs v. Jackson decision just 1 year ago,
that's for all the lives that Dobbs just saved.
the work is not yet done. In fact, it is quite literally the opposite. Since Dobbs, only 14 states have had a full ban go into place, while 6 others have enacted partial bans. Other states are still dealing with their own Supreme Courts, blocking their attempts to implement new protections for the unborn, even after Dobbs. With the new makeup of the Wisconsin Supreme Court, they will likely throw out their current ban in the coming months. We are losing ground. Even worse, post-Roe America has seen 18 states implement new, even more pro-death policies, expanding access to infanticide and enshrining it in their state constitutions, and even more egregious policies as well. Pro-lifers lost at all 5 statewide ballot initiatives on the issue of abortion in 2022, granting California, Michigan, and Vermont a constitutional right to abortion in their states, and failing to ban the practice in Kentucky and Montana at the time. The only real, lasting victory the pro-life movement has witnessed at the national level has been at the hands of unelected judges, thanks to key appointments made by then-President Donald J. Trump, a man who is now attacked by the people he fought alongside for this victory. There is a massive problem facing the future of the pro-life movement, and today we're going to diagnose that problem and propose a solution. This video may upset some, especially those who work as activists and influencers in the pro-life movement who take no fault with the current direction of that movement. But I believe everything I say here today needs to be said, because all life is precious, and to protect that life, we need a movement that will be capable and effective at delivering a victory for that message. The problem. Part 1. The personnel. As I said, the pro-life movement is at a crossroads. There are 2 factions within the movement, and sadly one seems to hold most of the power away from the other. The main grassroots energy of the pro-life movement comes from traditionalist, religious, Christian groups, churches and Christian ministries who pour their blood, sweat, and tears into grassroots events to change the hearts and minds of the public in favor of the pro-life cause. But many of the leaders of this movement do not fall into that category. They have embraced the big tent theory of politics. They are single-issue-minded people who ignore the big political picture. Many call themselves pro-life feminists. They are for the most part secular, sometimes openly atheist, and a few are good Christians. But even then, most hide their Christianity in favor of secular worldview arguments. Almost none of these leaders embrace Christianity in their principal argument for life. But since I'm going to use the term, let's define it. What is a pro-life feminist? A pro-life feminist is a person who is vehemently against abortion, but fails to address the root causes of the problem. They subscribe to feminist theory either consciously or subconsciously, and by accepting the premise of the left, they fail to push back properly against the left. They are passionate about treating the symptom, abortion, and for this we must applaud them. But they are ignorant to the root causes, and without addressing that, we can never fully remove the objections by our detractors to an authentically pro-life country. Here's a personal anecdote. At the last March for Life Chicago, right after the Dobbs decision, several people took the stage in order to speak on the horrors of abortion. But commonly, these arguments contained feminist foundations. Sentiments of, you can do both, be a mother and have a successful career. Motherhood does not mean putting your career on hold. They had a focus on single motherhood and crisis pregnancies, but little mention of encouraging proper family formation. There was an attitude which seemed to disregard fatherhood completely, and not a single conservative masculine man gave a speech. This coalition may be pro-life, but they are not broadly pro-family and cannot continue on into the future. One pro-life feminist talking point that is completely absurd is the idea that vasectomies are an appropriate countermeasure to abortion. No, telling men to mutilate themselves is not helping the problem. Sorry, Lauren. We need to be encouraging abstinence, not mutilation. But these are the consequences of pro-life feminism. I've heard that my views are misogynistic and that I'm too pro-men. From the same feminists who expect traditional-minded men to just fall into their lap. Pro-life feminists want other people to be traditional, but refuse to conform to those standards themselves. It really is a shame. Now, we must make another distinction. There are two major roles in the pro-life movement, as with any political movement. The first is that of the politician, crafting real-world, passable legislation. These people, for the most part, must play within the Overton window to achieve policy victories. This role is essential in any republic or democracy that seeks to make political change. The other is the role of activist. These people have a goal of winning over hearts and minds, and therefore shifting the Overton window of what we are able to discuss in the political conversation. These people should also be responsible for formulating new ideas to push past the traditional framework of the movement, to appeal to new demographics without compromising core values, and push the future of the pro-life movement in the correct direction. For our movement to be successful, we must have both effective politicians and persuasive activists. The people currently running the movement, however, fail to recognize this distinction. And while naming names is unpopular, it's sometimes needed. I have nothing to gain from doing this, but we need accountability within our movement, and so I will. The two chief offenders of this obfuscation of the roles of politician and activist in recent months have been Lila Rose, founder of Live Action, and Kristan Hawkins, president of Students for Life. Lila Rose, on the whole, tends to be a much better communicator for the pro-life movement than most of her counterparts. She's fairly good at what she does, being a communicator, appearing on TV and at events, and sharing pro-life stories and facts. I thank her for her service to this movement. Besides for some feminist tendencies when it comes to rejecting the traditional gender roles supported by the Catholic Church when it comes to marriage, she has been fairly solid on the issues, both pro-life and pro-family. But she completely misses the mark when it comes to dealing with the actual politicians who have to legislate and govern. Miss Rose has brought it upon herself to try and crucify Donald Trump over the simple fact that he is not publicly committed to promoting a federal, nationwide abortion ban. Not only is this foolish of Miss Rose, but completely irresponsible for the movement. First of all, no such bill has any chance of making it through the Senate and onto the president's desk in our current political climate. Even if the bill were to make it to that point, through some miracle where over 10 Democrats have a change of heart and support banning abortion, Trump has not said he would veto any such bill. Simply for trying to focus his campaign on other issues which he may actually be able to act upon while in office, issues that are popular broadly with Americans, Lila Rose has deemed herself some sort of kingmaker and labeled Donald Trump disqualified for president by the pro-life movement. The most pro-life president ever is not enough for Lila Rose. By the way, this is the exact same stance that the current runner-up for the Republican nomination, Ron DeSantis, supports. That is that abortion is now a state-level issue and must be worked out through the states. Trump needs to get elected to be able to fight for the pro-life movement. He will not be able to do so dedicating his campaign to the single most polarizing issue in the nation. The single issue which energizes feminist Democrats to come out and vote like no other. His job is to win and govern. Lila Rose's job is to change hearts and minds to support further policy changes in the future. By the way, Trump has announced several other policies that fall into my category of pro-life plus, encouraging family formation and encouraging adoption. But that doesn't matter to Miss Rose. She has condemned Trump as not pro-life enough for the movement. Kristan Hawkins is no different. She has been going after Trump even longer than Lila Rose has. But she supports a different candidate, former Vice President Mike Pence. Now, I don't view the guy who is far more likely to get us into World War III with a nuclear power as a great choice at the moment, especially for the pro-life movement. But hey, if you are solely basing your decision for leader of the free world on a singular issue, nuclear holocaust isn't that bad of a consequence for getting your way. Politics is a game of the possible. Activism is a game of persuasion. These two activists and their arguments against the most pro-life president ever, Donald J. Trump, the one man who deserves the most credit for ending Roe v. Wade, lack both persuasion as well as the possibility of political implementation in the present moment. But what do I know? I don't run a multi-million-dollar pro-life nonprofit corporation beholden to donors and special interests. I certainly don't see the benefits of feminism the way they do. I just want to see a victory for the pro-life movement from the one person who has truly delivered us a political victory in the last 50 years. The Problem, Part 2, the Politics and Strategy of the Movement. Since the liberation of the states to enact their own pro-life policy agendas last year, the pro-life movement has become fractured. While some states are still deep in the trenches, fighting for an end to infanticide and pushing back as the left takes even more ground in deep blue states, others have simply claimed victory and ended their crusades. This became evident in North Dakota, where the board of the North Dakota Right to Life organization decided to end all of its employee contracts. To them, their purpose has been fulfilled. There is nothing left to do in the pro-life movement. This is wrong. The national big tent pro-life strategy may have served some useful purpose in getting the Republican base to rally against abortion, culminating in Trump's strong stance to only nominate 100% pro-life justices to the Supreme Court.
Do you want the court, including the justices that you will name, to overturn Roe v. Wade, which includes, in fact states, a woman's right to abortion?
Well, if that would happen, because I am pro-life and I will be appointing pro-life judges, I would think that that will go back to the individual states. Another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
This in turn led to the fall of Roe v. Wade. But a coalition that includes pro-life Democrats, atheists, and socialists, yes, I've met all 3 at the Chicago March for Life, are incapable of taking the next step. The remnants of the pro-life movement need to evolve their positions in a more conservative direction to offer an inspiring vision for the future and keep the movement unified. The solution. We must climb back up the slippery slope and address the root causes of abortion if we are ever going to move forward with destroying the process nationwide. Part 1. Fixing the personnel at the top. The real problem with this mainstream feminist version of the pro-life movement is that it doesn't truly address the root causes of abortion. What are those root causes? Growing promiscuity, a symptom of modern feminism. Declining religious belief, a symptom in part of modern feminism. Declining marriage rates, a symptom of second-wave feminism. Declining single-income homes, a symptom in part of second-wave feminism. And the high expense of children, a symptom of modern American society. I will say this, that list encompasses 100 years of quote-unquote progress made by the left. It will take years to climb back up the slippery slope of feminism. A movement which sold young women on the need to be legally equivalent to men. A movement which told them that their career is more valuable than homemaking. A movement which told them to go to work at the widget factory and let someone else raise their children. A movement whose consequences are leading to the destruction of the American family. We will climb back up that slope, no matter how long it takes. Our survival as a species depends on it. as our population slowly collapses. The way we climb back up the slope faster is to attack the root of the problem directly. Reject feminism, reject modernity, reject the left, and reject abortion. If we demonstrate the value of motherhood as a primary vocation, not an afterthought to a business career, our country will recover much faster. To do so means changing a bit of what the pro-life movement looks like. We cannot have feminists running most all pro-life organizations. We cannot appeal to socialists and Democrats, at least as a national movement. Within the blue states, sure, where the fight continues just to ban abortion, these types of coalitions are beneficial in the present moment. But at the national level, they only serve to hold the movement back, to keep it from evolving on its necessary progression. We must do things differently. And that brings me to the vision of what the pro-life movement must evolve into in the near future. The solution, part 2, the future of the pro-life movement, policy and rhetoric. First off, and most obviously, the pro-life movement will want to get a nationwide ban in place. The best way to do this so that it actually lasts is through a constitutional amendment. That will not be easy, but banning infanticide in all 50 states individually is basically impossible because of states like Massachusetts, California, Vermont, Hawaii, and even to an extent, Illinois. Not that people should stop trying to make that change happen, but it is unrealistic. The best path forward is to grow a pro-life majority in 3/5 of the states and then call an Article 5 convention of states to pass a pro-life amendment to the Constitution. This circumnavigates Congress completely and would be the best chance a grassroots movement has at passing an amendment to the Constitution on an issue as polarizing as abortion nationwide. That covers the goal of the pro-life movement as it stands today, in ending abortion nationwide. But to truly inspire pro-lifers, to unite them nationwide with a common purpose, especially those in states which have become docile and content with their current victory, we must embrace the avant-garde of the pro-life and pro-family movement. The first policy the movement must embrace in the coming years is one that is both important and viable, a policy which has been gaining traction due to comments made by Senator J.D. Vance. The policy is to make birth free in the United States.
How likely do you think a policy like make birth free or something similar to it is likely in the current state that we're in?
Yeah, so I shared this article actually, and I've been explicitly on record as supporting this policy. And
which I thought was wild.
Yeah,
it was like 3 weeks of you being in the Senate.
Yeah, no, that definitely turned some heads. I got a lot of questions about that. Institutional politics and institutional power really matters. And the fact that a lot of the pro-life movement has gotten on board in principle with this, not necessarily how to do it, but has gotten on board in principle with this, is a pretty big deal. I think it makes it much more likely that it will happen.
I touched on this some in my most recent article over at the American Post-Liberal, which I definitely recommend reading. This policy should be a top priority for pro-lifers going forward, because it is both effective, viable, and popular. In modern America, the average cost of childbirth is $18,800 and leaves the parents with around $2,800 in out-of-pocket expenses. These high expenses scare people away from starting families and having children. The idea of mountainous medical bills can turn becoming pregnant, something that should be a celebration, into a financial nightmare that scares young and impoverished couples. It scares them right into the hands of Planned Parenthood to ensure they don't become parents. By making birth free, and therefore making it cheaper than abortion, we eliminate at least one fear they have of going into parenthood. This good policy could be used in negotiations with Democrats in gaining some bipartisan support. Pushing forward past free birth, we should look to Viktor Orban's pro-family policy in Hungary, a topic I have covered in a previous video as well. Instead of simply discouraging infanticide, Hungary has done the opposite. They have encouraged family formation like no other country. His Family Protection Action Plan has implemented several pro-family, natalist policies to encourage people to have children. A program that includes marriage loans, child stipends, housing support, extended maternal and paternal leave, and tax benefits, all contingent upon couples having children and remaining married. A policy like this answers the objections of the left that we only care about birth and nothing more, and offers an inspirational vision for the nation of a true culture of life. As a movement, we must get better at reaching out to men. Right now, many men seem disinterested with the pro-life movement, and I think a part of that can be attributed to the feminist messaging coming out of these major organizations. Their narrative is one that states that men need to step up, but at the same time blames the majority of abortions on men coercing women. Now, a statistic is a statistic, and how they determine that statistic is up to them. But here's what I know from my own experience. Young men I've met from sports and even through Greek life are pro-life but quiet about it. That's because if you do what I did and publicly say something that goes against the feminist narrative, especially when it comes to abortion, college girls will attack you, drag your name through the mud, and even plot physical retribution. Men are blamed for coercing 60% of abortions, yet at the same time, men are the ones with zero power to physically stop an abortion. Women are the ones who go into the clinic. They could walk out. If their man is abusive, they could call the police and get an armed escort away from him. They could file a restraining order. And if they choose to keep the baby, the legal system will make that man pay child support regardless of if he wants to, regardless of if the woman is faithful to him, and regardless of the amount of custody he receives. Men, on the other hand, are powerless to stop their significant other from getting an abortion. If you want to truly radicalize young men to be openly pro-life, show them this video.
Tell her to listen.
No, don't do it.
Daddy, don't kill our baby. Daddy.
Oh my gosh. They don't. It's not right. It isn't right.
I'm such a good dad.
I know, honey.
I took care of her kids too, and the guy that she's let back in her life doesn't even take care of his own kids.
Yeah, he raised them with his kids.
No matter what happens, Siler, you've done the right thing.
By flipping the feminist narrative on its head, the pro-life message could resonate with so many more people, especially young men. Phrases like, fathers deserve rights too, and it takes two to make a baby could take on a whole new meaning with young pro-life men. We must acknowledge the sins of the feminist movement who celebrate promiscuity in the modern world and move forward. Men are not angels either, but even fairly apolitical young men don't like the idea of women having absolute power over the fate of their children. The pro-choice stance is a choice only offered to women. This is part of why Andrew Tate has become so viral, despite his many moral flaws. The argument of, why should your girlfriend be able to kill your baby without even telling you she was pregnant, is one that resonates with apolitical young men. It is an angle I have not seen one pro-life organization ever argue, but it is one I have heard in countless conversations between young men in college. It is not the most conservative argument, no. It would be better if people waited until marriage like they're supposed to. But at the end of the day, men are not angels. We can, however, better convince them to take responsibility for their actions if the message of this movement is changed, if we implement messaging and messengers who will resonate with young men. Pro-life feminism must find its match in pro-life, pro-family Christian patriarchy. Leaders like Dr. Taylor Marshall, Senator J.D. Vance, Michael Cassidy, and Timothy Gordon must become central figures in the next steps of this movement. We must be advocating for traditional, well-ordered, God-centered families. I know many great pro-life fathers who work and volunteer as activists at the grassroots level of the pro-life movement. Eric and Dan, I thank you two specifically for being exceptional role models in this movement at the local level. But I do find it disturbing the lack of fathers leading these organizations at the national level. People like Dr. Taylor Marshall and Elliot Hulse are more the type of leaders men need to hear from for the movement to flourish. This is something we must work on in order to strengthen the future of this movement. Unmarried people, like myself, especially while at a very young age, do have an important role to play in this movement. I sincerely believe that. But only a week ago, I was passing out pro-life flyers in public, and the retorts I constantly received were, "Where are your children? Go take care of your kids. Wait till you get a girl pregnant." We need more fathers in the pro-life movement because they can argue from an ethos, from a credibility which others simply cannot. We need to showcase men who stepped up. We need to showcase men who waited till marriage to do the marital act. We need to showcase to women that if they are responsible too, if they don't give in to the temptations of modern dating, good men will find them too. Men who are worthy of starting a family with. Men who are worthy of the traditional roles and privileges of fatherhood, of patriarchy. So yes, the pro-life movement today does have its problems, as does every political movement. It's not going to be fixed overnight, but my goal with this video was to spread awareness of the issues facing the pro-life movement, and to try to get more people interested in being a part of the solution. We need more pro-life men. We need a broader pro-family vision. We need activists who will vocalize this new vision, and we need political leaders who will execute upon that vision. Working together, victory is inevitable because God wills it so. So buckle down and get to work because we have a lot of work to do. The best is yet to come. Take care and God bless. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share the video with a friend. On the screen, you should see a link to another video in my Pro-Life Plus series. Check it out if you'd like to hear more. Let's build this movement organically, together. All it takes is for you to spread the word to a few friends, and we will continue it from there. Stay strong, soldiers.